If you wanted me to record, I'm not. I don't know if you did.
I got it. We're on.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks so much for coming together. I know it's a busy time of year right now. Um, I'm Carrie, and I'm excited to just actually really talk about this topic that's been near and dear to my heart just from personal experience. And it's bringing in the balance in the holidays. So we're doing a healthy holiday talk today about how to stay in balance and how to kind of continuously be working towards that healthier lifestyle, even during all of the things. So I think so often we have this all or none mentality. And a lot of people really suffer from that. And I hear this so much when I'm talking about, maybe an upcoming cleanse, we're talking about this. And the first thing I hear is like, oh, I have to travel for work and I always eat terribly when I travel. Or, oh, I have this event coming up, or I have a birthday party, or there's always going to be something. Like, you're never going to find a chunk of time that there's just like, oh, there's no events or there's no reasons to kind of go off. So I want to really bring in, first of all, talking about why this mentality happens in our body. And it's actually a cognitive part of your psychological thinking. It's when you see things very black or white. And life is really just quite gray, actually. So really understanding that, it can't be like I'm either failing or an ultimate success, because how did you get to success? Like, there's a whole in between that you're skipping over. So that portion is something that I can really resonate with, like really focusing on like, well, if it's not perfect, it was a failure. And that just isn't true. And that type of thinking will create a lot of suffering in your body and in your minds. So, being able to stay in the balance in life in general is going to continuously progress you towards your goals. So if you think of like, I want to hike a mountain that's 15 miles up or whatever, and you say, well, I can't do that because I'm not fit yet, or I can't do it all at once, so I'm just not going to do it at all. Versus maybe you walk a mile and then take a break and enjoy the nature around you and just kind of rest. Then you take another, half mile, and you get the point. Eventually you will get to the top of that mountain. You'll get that top view, and then it's easy on the way down. So really avoiding that ability to be in this all or nothing is like a really negative thought process. And it's really commonly seen, and we don't know which comes first, but it's really commonly seen in psychological behaviors that with anxiety, depression, lack of self-worth, and then what are some of the other ones that were low self-esteem, self-criticism, negative body image, and eating issues. And so this is something that, maybe those things developed from that all or none mentality is more so what the research in psychology is saying, is that when we have this mentality, we basically set ourselves up for failure, because perfection is unrealistic. And, doing everything right all the time is unrealistic. Eating perfect all of the time is unrealistic. Even all of us on here have other things. I know we show up and we're like, eat raw, eat plants, eat this. But I guarantee you everyone on here has had a bagel or something. I don't know. So just understanding that this is always a process of evolution, and the goal isn't whatever you're painting your picture as perfection is what's actually creating that sorrow in your body or in your mind. And so I love bringing in the holiday times as such a time of celebration and such a time of like family and coming together. And I know this year's maybe a little bit different. Maybe people aren't getting together so much, but there generally are a lot of holiday parties. There's a lot of get-togethers, and we tend to like really wrap ourselves around traditions and traditions of what families eat, and traditions of like, well, I'm going to have this because this is what we always have. And that's fine. You can do that. You can have the balance, or you can make a better choice for yourself and bring something of your own. And so I did a little live video the other day about like how I stay healthy while I travel. And this is the same way I stay healthy during the holidays, and how I find balance is I prepare. I bring my own food, I bring my own snacks, but I always, before a party or before whatever, I make sure that I have a fresh juice, a superfood shake, and maybe a salad. And so I don't go to that event just like ravenously hungry and wanting to like have a cookie, have this, have that. So I have like all of the nourishment that I need in my body. And then if I want to try something, I just have a little, and I feel really good and I feel really in balance. If you go into a situation that you know is going to be difficult for you and you have like 18 cookies, not only does it affect your health, but it affects your mental health. And then there's this guilt cycle that comes after that, which is really not productive or healthy for us in any way. It's human. I love chocolate. Like, I love it. I know that part of my love for chocolate is an adrenal weakness, right? So I have it in little bits at a time. I have the best option possible. So I will be sending this over in our notes to follow up, but have a ton of great recipes where you can make the thing that you want, but in a healthy version. So we make vegan brownies, chocolate brownies. We make with coconut flour and almond flour and vegan chocolate and cacao. It's super simple. We have pumpkin bread. We did raw cinnamon rolls. Um, thank you. And we did raw cinnamon rolls. And let me just turn off my notifications so nobody keeps hearing that. I apologize. There we go. All set. And so there's a ton of things that you can do, and you can really have fun with it and surprise the people that you're with. So I just like to bring something. Granted, at this point, everyone knows that I'm a plant-based eater, but I love to bring something to a gathering and then not tell anyone. And just one time I have this great experience. I was at a friend's house and somebody kept asking who made the chicken. And I was like, had a panic attack. Like, I think this happened at yours too, Carrie. But so I had a panic attack, like, who made the chicken? Who made the chicken? And I was like, there's no chicken. Am I eating chicken? And I like had a panic attack, and it was jackfruit. Somebody made incredible, like Tinga style jackfruit, and it was so good. And everyone thought they were eating chicken, and these are meat eaters. So there's so much that you can do with food that's really creative and really fun and really nourishing. And it doesn't really have to look like what we think. You know, we change butter out for coconut oil. We change sugar out for maple syrup or dates, or coconut palm sugar. We change regular white bleached flour out for cassava flour, coconut flour, almond flour. An egg, instead of an egg, is a flax egg or a chia seed egg. So these are some really, really simple solutions that can happen just when you're changing over the way that you eat and not always having to have that all or none mentality. So like tonight is my anniversary. My husband and I have been married, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. We don't know. And we're going to go out to our favorite place and have some beautiful Thai food on the ocean. But today I'm going to have fresh juices and fruit all day at the beach. So, you know, it's like finding that, striking that balance, and not be like, oh, I had this or that, or I had a drink. So now the whole day I have to have that. And then that's when you really get off. Or like, oh, I'll just start over next week or next Monday. And that type of thinking will keep you in this cycle of abuse with yourself. And it'll keep you from succeeding. And I had a bunch of notes, but I can't see very well. But basically it says that all or nothing thinking is problematic in many ways because it's limiting and it creates extreme impossible expectations for yourself. Like if you view yourself as this, like how are you ever going to achieve that without the in-between? So as a result, people view themselves and their experiences negatively, which can often lead to depression, anxiety, low motivation, and sinking self-esteem because we think of this as where we want to be, and then we did this, so then we've had this failure mentality. So with this type of thinking, you're only focusing on failures and completely missing all of the accomplishments and small victories that you have made along the way. And then I want to just talk about, I don't know if I can share my screen because I'm not the host. No, I'm not. Okay, so I can't. So I'll share it in the notes. But the 7 ways to identify if this is a pattern that you're in, or 7 things that you can actually do, is learn to spot all of the all or nothing thinking, like where you do it. So keep a little journal with you. Like, is it specifically around food? Then that's probably more related to an adrenal issue or an adrenal fatigue issue that you have that mentality and it's specifically focused around food. If it's like kind of everywhere in your life, you notice it around work, like, oh, I didn't do a good job, so I'm just not going to do anything. Right? So just keep track, like learn to spot all of your all or nothing behavior and write them down. 2, describe the situation that you're in that created that all or nothing behavior. And just like, oh, I was at a party, because I had 1 cookie, I decided to eat all of the cookies or something. 3, capture the stories that you tell yourself. And this is really important because most of our belief patterns around this is simply stories that we're telling ourselves that aren't really true. And it's all in our mind, and it keeps us out of balance instead of just being able to be in the moment and be in balance. 4 is pinpoint the emotions that your story triggers. And this is really important. So notice what triggers that you have emotionally. Sorry, there's a helicopter going over the ocean right now. So when you have like a story like, oh, I failed, or I this or that, pinpoint like what does that trigger inside of you? How does that feel physically in your body? And even though we don't like those emotions, there can be a patterning of addiction to those emotions because they're what you know or what you've experienced and what you're comfortable with. So notice what it's triggering, and if maybe there's a constant repeat of that emotion or a constant repeat of those situations in your life, and it may be an old pattern that's ready to be broken. And then 6 is challenge your initial thought. And this goes back to the work that I've done with Byron Katie, is like when we believe our thoughts, we suffer, and when we question our thoughts, we don't suffer. So go back to challenge your initial thought, like, well, is that thought true? Can I really not do it all? Have I really failed at everything? And then you could pick out all the successes you had throughout the week. Like, I went for a walk, I did yoga, I had a beautiful breakfast, I did really great at work. So start really tracking those successes so that you can see that your thoughts are keeping you out of balance. And then 7 is just choose a new thought. Like, simply choose a new thought. That's it. How can you turn that thought around into balance? Like, I'm going to fully enjoy this party with my friends. And then tomorrow I'm going to do yoga and have celery juice and watermelon, right? And so there's a little graph that will come, or like a little diagram, and it's the triangle, and it talks about thoughts at the top. So our thoughts are the stories we tell ourselves, and they impact our emotions and our actions. So literally like the very stories that maybe are programmed in our ancestral line, in our cellular being, which we've talked on other calls about. Cleansing is so powerful for cleaning those stories out. But these things can be the things that are impacting our stories and our emotions. And then so those thoughts go to our emotions, and then our emotions affect our thoughts and our actions. So it goes back and forth. And then it goes over to actions, and actions influence the thoughts. So it's kind of like a song called Bo, where it's like an action creates the karma, or your groove or pattern. Like the way you always do things creates your action creates your samskara, which is your reaction. And it's just a constant cycle where you're in a thought, action, reaction pattern. Instead of being reactive, 90% of life is how you react to it. So how can you find balance in these situations where you're really striving to be a little bit better? And that's in the beautiful gray space, in the in-between. So how can I find balance with my family? How can I find balance with my friends? How can I find balance with my eating? How can I show up better? And then really creating positive thoughts around all of that. So that's really my share. The recipe portion, I can't do any demoing, but I will send out some amazing recipes that are so fun to make and so fun to bring to holiday events, and surprise people with what you've brought. And don't really draw attention to it. Once they've already relished and that they've enjoyed that so much and who made that, then go ahead and tell them. All right, thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. Those are great tips, and mindfulness is so important with it all, and being aware of thoughts. So, which brings me up to a story that I have to share. Oh, by the way, my name's Carrie Tidwell. I'm one of the regenerative detox specialists here, and just really grateful and happy and honored to be sharing this with you. And when we brought up this topic, healthy holidays, it reminded me of a story that happened 16 years ago when I first did my first initial cleanse I've ever done. I didn't really know much about cleansing. I just knew I struggled with weight for most of my life. And back then I thought, if I don't put myself on some type of program or protocol, I'm just going to gain another 10 pounds and be in the cycle of not really having not limitations, but not having a roadmap to health. And I knew my eating was out of control, and I had major sugar addictions, and I really wanted to break that. And so I was at this fabric store and I saw this pamphlet that said 28-day cleanse, and I looked through it and I was like, oh wow, it gives you steps. It's like, it kind of guides you through the process. And I thought I needed to do something. And so, not saying that you have to do a cleanse through the holidays, but mine ended up being over Christmas time. And I thought, if I don't do this now, I'm just going to gain another 10 pounds. So I was inspired to take action, massive action, to transform and change back then. And I knew it had something to do with my food, because I knew I couldn't just have one cookie. I would eat way more than I needed to, just out of habit or out of addiction of the sugar. And so when I did this, I followed it. And what I did was I made my mind up, and I decided to focus on the connection and family and not make it about the food. And so much of our culture, it's all surrounded by food. And that really taught me it's not just about that. It's like I already had my mindset, and then I was going to focus on the relationships and really engaging in a totally different way. And in doing that, I ended up losing 10 pounds. I felt really good. I didn't really understand the body like I do now at a regenerative level. So I slowly, as I started getting off that cleanse, I thought, okay, I'll go back to my old ways, and slowly started adding in other things. I remember when I first had sugar or salt after that, I was like, it was too intense. But as I started bringing that back into my diet, I started to crave more of that. And I kind of went through that cycle. I didn't have the support or help in understanding body's warning signs until about 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, I was struggling with, because I had accumulated so much congestion from going back to old habits and not the clean eating. So I ended up having digestive issues, adult allergies, chronic pain, adrenal fatigue, this is a laundry list of things that were presenting in my body that I didn't realize weren't normal. I thought they were normal, but they were just common. But I knew something was off. I was getting dizzy every time I stood up, and I knew I had to make a shift. And so about 5 years ago, I discovered regenerative healing and learning through that, and then doing a thorough cleanse with understanding the body functions, understanding the lymph system, understanding the kidneys and the roles of the endocrine glands and the adrenals. And once I understood that and didn't just do a 28-day cleanse and go back to my old ways, I really reprogrammed, regenerated my body on a cellular level. And then I understood why I was doing it. It made such a complete difference in my life. And then I was able to stick with certain lifestyle changes from that. And I didn't go back to the old ways, because I now know what turns on and off inflammation in my body. And so I could make those choices of what to do. And so since then, 5 years ago, our family holidays have been totally different. We now have a lot more real whole foods, more fresh foods at our gatherings. And it had this beautiful ripple effect into my family and friends, because now when we get together, there's a lot more healthier options than there was before. And just like Carrie was saying, there's always healthy alternatives to things. So I used to love carameled apples, and now I make a caramel apple dip out of date sauce, and you could dip apples in that. And so there's so many different things to do in a healthier way that still tastes good. And then you feel better. So I don't know if any of you can relate to feeling like really lethargic after Thanksgiving meals, just wanting to lay around and not really have much energy. I never liked that feeling of doing that, but for some reason I would always stuff myself. Like, this is like the one meal I would just eat everything, and food combinations were totally done not in a good way, and that's why I would feel lethargic and not have energy to do much after that. And so I say this not saying to do a cleanse, but to let you know that if you are wanting to make lifestyle changes and wanting to understand the body and understand your body, and you're wanting support, I didn't have that when I did that 16 years ago, but just to let you know, we offer online guided group cleanses, and they're not just a cleanse, it's really a transformation to help you understand your body on a deeper level, to as you eliminate certain things and add things back in, you're going to know your body better than you did before, and understand your body's warning signs and what that might mean, and how we can give our body the best condition to heal itself. And I wanted to share a story that I can't remember where I heard it, but it really hit me, of like wanting to question why we do what we do. And so I'll just get into the story and then share my thoughts on it. So there is a mom who was cooking with her daughter and teaching her daughter how to cook this traditional meal. So she was making a turkey, and she would cut the turkey and then put it in the pan and put it in the oven. And her daughter asked, "Mom, why do you cut the turkey before you put it in the pan and throw that piece away?" And the mom said, "That's because that's what your grandma taught me." And so the mom was curious of like, yeah, why did my mom teach me to do that? So let me find out. And so she called her mom and asked, "Why do you cut a piece of the turkey off and throw it in the garbage and then bake it?" And the grandmother ended up telling the mom, because the pan was too small. And so we can pass down these traditions, not realizing why we're doing what we're doing. And so it's just an example of like, start to question, like, why do we eat turkey for Thanksgiving? Why do we have to eat these processed and packaged foods if like that's what our grandmothers did? Because maybe that was the only thing that was available, or they didn't have this awareness about health. And so how can we bring these comfort foods in a healthier way, and not just do it because this is how my grandma did it or this is how my mom did it, but how can we do it in a healthy way that can be more in alignment with what we're truly wanting? If we're wanting health and to accumulate good lifestyle habits, it's to have these healthier alternatives and options, and making food taste good. And that can be done as we start to try new recipes. So as you prepare for the holiday season, I invite you to try new recipes, and then take a step back and question why you're doing what you're doing. And if you love a certain recipe, how can you make it healthier? There's usually alternatives for that. And then focusing on connection and community instead of just the food is really important. And then I believe too, when you take really good care of yourself, it has this beautiful ripple effect on your family and those around you. And you don't even have to say much. If you're trying to transform and change your diet and lifestyle, people will notice that, and they'll see a difference in you. They'll see a difference in your energy or in your skin, and how you glow from the inside out. And that can just have a beautiful ripple effect in your family and in the world. And so that's what I wanted to share about for today. So thank you for being here, and I hope that this whole class will be really helpful for adding more real, fresh, whole foods in your diet and lifestyle.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. My name is Mary Beth Fleming, and yes, I couldn't agree more with the connection piece and the preparing yourself for having a healthier holiday. One of the things we can do is just let our family members know, let our relatives, let whoever you're going to be sharing a meal with, like, hey, I'm really trying to have a healthier holiday this time around, and would you support me in that? And that, saying that from the beginning, can be really amazing, and it can actually inspire other family members to say, oh, well, hey, how are you going to do that? Or I want to participate in that. What healthier meal can I bring to the event? So really preparing and acknowledging that you're going to give that a go and letting your people know that you're doing that as well can lead to just a lot more successes along the way. And one of the things that I really wanted to touch on is food combining, because it's common on the holidays. We eat too much, we mix the wrong foods, we get the belly bloat, we get the gas, we get lethargic. And so there are really simple things that you can do to just focus on food combining to kind of avoid those. So one of the main I'd say the number one emphasis on food combining is to not mix your proteins and your starches. And that can be hard during the holidays when you're picking from a lot of foods, but if you can be aware of your food combination, and the reason being is proteins require more of an acidic medium in the gut to be broken down, and starches require more alkaline juices. So when you eat the two together, the body starts producing both juices, and then they neutralize, and the food doesn't really get broken down or digested or assimilated as properly as it could. So focusing on that, one of the ways you can think about that is all food digests at different rates. So our melons, for instance, they digest within like 15 to 30 minutes. So you really want to focus on eating those by themselves because they digest so fast. And then actually carbs and veggies digest more around the 2 to 3 hour period. So if you eat foods that digest at similar rates at the same time, you're going to notice that your digestive process is working better. So proteins take about 4 hours. So my rule of thumb is like start with the melon, eat that by itself, then go into the fruit, the sweeter fruits and the mix of fruits. Those digest a little bit faster than the melons, and then take a break and then go into the carbs and the veggies, take another little break, head into the proteins. And if you do that where you're consuming the foods that digest quicker first, your body's going to have an easier process moving that all through your body. Another great tip for the holidays is just to think about when you're drinking your liquids. So when you drink a lot of liquid with your big meal, again, it's going to dilute the digestive juices, and it's going to break down the hydrochloric acid and the enzymes and all these things we need to really have a efficient digestion. So the idea is to drink, your beverage 15 to 30 minutes before a meal, and then wait a good 2 to 3 hours after your meal to consume more liquids, just to allow that digestive process to really happen. And yeah, that can be hard during the holidays, but again, these are things just to think of and keep in mind to help aid your digestive process along. Another thing to think of when you're wanting to go for a more healthy version is opt for steamed veggies over fried veggies, or steamed food over fried food. If you're looking for recipes, more steamed is going to be easier on the body and you're going to get more nutrients from it. It's not going to be as dense and fatty and hard on the body. Another thing that I really like to focus on is eating my raw foods before my cooked foods. So raw foods have, your salad, it has all the great enzymes intact in the food that help you break down your food. And it also has the alkaline juices in there that are going to hydrate you during your meal. And then afterwards go into more of your cooked or more acidic foods. I know for myself, I try to start the day with more alkaline foods, more hydrating, oxygenating foods, because once I start the day like that, I notice myself wanting to eat more of those foods for the whole day. But if I start my day with a really heavy, fatty, oily, acidic meal, I notice myself leaning more that way. So one of the things you can do during the holidays is if you're going to be sharing a big family meal later in the day, like Carrie was saying, start the day with some alkaline stuff. Start the day with your green juice. Start the day with your celery juice, your barley grass juice, to really support the digestive system and support that hydration prior to moving into more of the treats and the bigger, heavier meals that you might consume for the holidays. And then when you're bringing a meal to your family, thinking about not making it super complicated. Personally, I try to go by the rule of 5, where I don't put more than 5 main ingredients in a meal. That's not including like spices and herbs and stuff like that, but 5 main ingredients, because the more food we add in, the more pressure on our digestive system, and the more we're going to get into that kind of improper food combining. So if you can just bring really simple meals to the family that have some really good flavor with herbs, and I'm going to share about a couple different sauces that are really good that you can add in, but thinking in the context of less is more, because your body's going to be able to absorb more of the nutrients from each food and it's not going to get overly bombarded. And then, of course, this is a hard one, but overeating is a favorite of most people during the holiday, but it really does put a lot of pressure on your body when we overeat substantial amounts. So the idea is to have that grazing pattern. And if you let your friends and family know that you're wanting to have more of a healthy holiday, part of that is more of the grazing pattern of, eating, like I said, some melons here, and then go into your fruit, and then go into your veggies, have this succession of meals. And during that time, you're really enjoying your company, because again, the emphasis isn't just on one big plate of food and your eyes aren't just here, but you're eating slowly throughout the day, enjoying the company, and all partaking in more of that grazing pattern, so we don't get so stuffed and bloated and full at the end of the day. And then another great thing we can do is chew our food really well. That's another part of enjoying the company you're with and having conversation at the table, taking a bite, taking the time to really chew it and engage in conversation and engage with the people you're with. Because one common thing during the holidays is we just eat too fast. And when we eat too fast, our saliva doesn't break down the food. We don't break it down enough to get into our gut. And then we end up with this big ball in our gut, and it leads to gas and different things. So really, one of my friends, he was super dedicated to mindful eating and chewing his food mindfully. And he would chew 50 times on each side, right and left. So 100 times before swallowing. Which to me is like, wow, that's kind of a lot, but why not develop more meditation around our chewing practices and allowing for more of that conversation and engagement with your friends and family. And then I would say just most importantly, like Carrie was talking about, is just going into the meal with the intention of being balanced, intention of being grateful, and intention of just enjoying the company you're with. There's a proverb out there that says, it's not about the food you're eating, but the company with which you're eating it. So that is really important too for staying in balance and getting out of that all or nothing mentality. If you're going to indulge in a little sweets, if you're going to indulge in a little thing here or there, really just take a moment to acknowledge that and just be grateful for the people that you're with and the company you're with. And most likely you won't overeat that because you're engaging all your senses with your community around you and not just asphyxiated on this one plate or this one little treat. And then there's some tips in terms of like when you're shopping for the holidays, some things that you can shop for. I always really try to emphasize shopping for organic and local as much as you can. The holidays is a wonderful time to support your local businesses. So try your best to shop locally, shop organic if possible. When you're picking fruit and vegetables, try to pick them as ripe as you can find them and shop seasonally. Right now is the time for pomegranates and citrus and kale and grapes. There's so many persimmons. There's so many great foods that are in season that when you eat them ripe and fresh, they're really going to absorb into the body a lot better. And going for all the colors of the rainbow. Yeah, the funnest part of the holidays, I feel, is the festivity and the color and the warmth. And so bringing meals that have a lot of color, and one of our best ways to do that is through our fruits and veggies. And then I like to follow, I don't know if you guys know Dr. Joel Furman. He goes by the G bombs, G being for greens, B being for beans, O being for onions, M being for mushrooms, B being for berries, and S being for seeds. And I find that as a really good grocery list for the holidays is following those G bombs. They're very high in antioxidants. You have a variety of foods there, and following the G bombs can be very, very good for your health and just give you an array of foods to pick from to bring to your family gathering as well. And when you're shopping at the store, the most important thing is, just read the labels. Like we emphasize a lot, just try to get the most whole foods you can and the least amount of packaging. But when you go to look at the label, the main things you want to avoid, are the artificial flavors and the dyes and the polysorbates and renin and glycerides, refined sugars, fortified isolates or vitamins. These are the foods that are these are the elements that are being added to our food that can also add to poor digestion and absorption and assimilation and kind of toxic buildup. So just more emphasis on whole foods, whole real foods, and it'll be a really amazing meal. I'm going to send you guys, those of you that registered for the Zoom, I'll send you a list of my favorite foods to shop for during the holidays, but it consists of, a lot of your fresh whole foods and things like sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds and chia seeds, quinoa and millet are some of great things to cook with. Unrefined virgin coconut oil, like Carrie Drinkwine was saying. And then quickly, I just wanted to go through and tell you guys about 8 of my favorite really simple meals that I like to bring during the holidays. One of them is just pomegranates with fresh squeezed lime. It's like the most divine, hydrating food. I love it. I could eat that all day long. So that's a simple appetizer to bring. Another thing to think about if you want to bring like a steamed veggie plate is making a variety of different tahini dressings. You can do all kinds of things with tahini and lemon and maybe some really nice miso in there and some garlic and herbs, and then pour that over your steamed veggies with maybe some sprouted sunflower seeds or sprouted sesame seeds. It makes a really amazing meal. You can even make a tahini dressing to put on a salad. So when I like to get creative during the holidays is with my sauces. Another one of our favorite for my family, my mother invented this one, is called the date plate. And as an appetizer, we just get dates and we cut a little sliver in them and we just put fresh fruit in there. We put blueberries in there, raspberries, tangerines, and they're just like, you take a bite and it's sweet and succulent and juicy and the kids love it. And so the date plate is one of our favorite plates to have on hand as a little appetizer. Raw eggnog, super simple to make with cashews and dates, a little bit of coconut oil, maybe some vanilla extract, cinnamon, and some water. You can blend that up quickly. Soak your cashews first and blend that up and you have a delicious, all whole food based eggnog. One of the cranberry relish that I'm going to be making this year for my family and Thanksgiving is just taking fresh cranberries and dates. I'll put all the exact amounts in the follow-up email, and a squirt of lemon and some fresh fennel, and you blend that up in a food processor and it makes an amazing fresh relish that's super simple, not a lot of ingredients. I also really like to make a living stuffing, and that is just walnuts, again, some dates, some rosemary, onion powder, salt, blend it up. Once you've blended it, add some fresh celery or fresh parsley or whatever, and it makes a divine fresh stuffing, and the walnuts are really hearty, so you don't actually have to eat that much, just a few bites, and you're like, wow, that is really good and dense and fulfilling. And then one of my last favorite ones for like if you want to make a little treat is chocolate covered strawberries. You can just get some raw cacao or raw cara powder at your health food store and put a little coconut oil in there and you mash it up. The coconut oil has to be, not melted, and then put some Himalayan pink rock salt on it. And then you just dip your strawberries in and you have really healthy, non-refined sugar, chocolate covered strawberries. And then finally is making a really healthy pie crust. The only thing you need to make a healthy pie crust is some sort of nut, like a walnut or an almond or a hazelnut, your choice of dried fruit. So maybe it's mango, maybe it's apricot, maybe it's date, maybe it's fig. Blend those up in the food processor and you'll get a really nice consistency and like where you can mold it with your hands. And put some salt in there, maybe some cinnamon, whatever spices you want, and you can actually press that into a really nice pie crust. And I typically take some frozen berries and let them thaw out, and I just put frozen berries on there and maybe make like a little coconut cream top with some coconut milk and a little vanilla extract and pour that over. And again, you have a refined, sugar-free, healthy fat, yummy, delicious, fresh pie crust and pie that you can make. So these are just some simple ideas. I'll also add these in the email, but that's kind of what I wanted to share. And just overall, just keep a really positive attitude. Let the people that you're enjoying holiday with know what you're up to. Go for having a wholesome experience. And if you start to feel yourself feeling deprived at all, or like, oh, I can't have that, or starting to get a negative attitude around it, going back to those tips that Carrie said are super helpful, and just re-identifying like, why is it that I want to have a healthier holiday, and why is that important to me? And when something's important to you and you value it, you will find alternatives, and there's so many amazing alternatives out there for having a healthy and enjoyable holiday, and just having fun. So that's what I wanted to share. And next up we have Miss Rita Jean.
Thank you so much, Mary. I'm bummed I'm not going to be near you during this holiday season because those recipes sound incredible. Thank you for sharing. And there's just a wealth of knowledge and information that was shared here by all the ladies. So thank you so much. I've been taking notes myself, and I'm excited for those follow-up notes in the email. And I wanted to speak to a little bit, how do we recover if we do indulge in ways that don't make us feel so wonderful? As Mary talked about, there's incredible ways to indulge that are really healthy and really satisfying and pleasurable and enjoyable, you know, from all of those colors and those amazing recipes to what Carrie Tidwell was talking about with enjoying the presence of your family and your community and whoever you're with, whether that's virtually or in person. And I do find that really sinking into that pleasure, that gratitude when you are eating, makes it go so much further and so much more makes it so much more enjoyable. So one thing that I will do while I'm eating is just really take in the texture, the smell, and that slows me down to a place where I'm receiving the nourishment from the food at every level. Because it's not just feeding our chemistry, it's not just making us full physically. You know, being around food and in community is emotional, a cultural component that we get really nourished and fed by. So really taking that in this holiday season. And so tips and tricks for when we do indulge in ways that are not as, don't make us feel so great. I really wanted to cover that. So basically, say the day after Thanksgiving or the holidays, you had a little bit too much sugar or you had a little bit too much wine, and you're either feeling a headache or some inflammation in the body. Maybe you're feeling a little bit sluggish, lack of energy. Maybe you're feeling that you gain some extra weight, whatever it may be. I mean, we just want to feel good in our bodies. We want to feel happy and joyful and healthy. And we've talked a lot about how what we're inputting in our body impacts us not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, and creatively. And so what I like to do whenever I'm feeling a little bit of inflammation or pain or just not completely up to my full game mentally, physically, emotionally, I like to do a little reset. And it can be as simple as just the following day incorporating a lot of fresh fruits and teas and green drinks into your life. So one thing I like to do is just start my day with grapes. They're really hydrating. Grapes are one of the most cleansing and foods for our lymphatic system. And our lymphatic system is what gets congested from the processed foods, from the sugars, from the inflammatory foods, from, you know, the alcohol. And that lymphatic congestion is also something that we inherit. So it's not just from our lifetime. Maybe we've eaten incredibly healthy our lifetime, but we've inherited layers of lymphatic congestion from parents and grandparents who were exposed to environmental toxins or who weren't raised in a healthy way and didn't know, you know, that dairy impacts the lymphatic system or that processed foods impact the lymphatic system. So the work that we do on ourselves is really amazing because it doesn't just impact us, it impacts multiple generations down. So we're cleaning up our genetic inheritances that we've inherited, and then we're also cleaning up what we're passing along if we're choosing to have children. So grapes are amazing for cleaning up the lymphatic system. One of my top favorites. If you look at them, they actually look a bit like the lymphatic system and the lymph nodes, the grape being the lymph node. And the lymph nodes are where all of the congestion gets stored from our acidic foods, from environmental exposures, all of it. Our lymph nodes are, a lot of them are up in, you know, the neck region, under our armpits, the front of the pelvis, all along the legs. But your lymphatic system is basically like your nervous system, and it's throughout your entire body. So it goes into the brain. So when we have lymphatic congestion, that's in the brain, then we start to feel that fogginess, that lack of clarity, long-term lymphatic congestion. We start to see more chronic symptoms like Alzheimer's or dementia or, you know, things like that. So we want to be doing the work while we're young, and cleaning that up ahead of time so that we can really be keeping our brain healthy. Because anything that impacts the brain in a negative way, the way that the body heals and eliminates it, any of those impacts, is via the lymphatic system. So we'll be sent to your lymphatic system, and then it'll be sent to your kidneys to be eliminated. So grapes is a great one. Any of your astringent fruits. So now that we're in pomegranate season, that's a wonderful one. I love the recipe that Mary said with lime and pomegranates. Your lemons, your citrus, all of that. I just made fresh squeezed orange juice this morning. Really simple and easy. You can hand squeeze them, or you can get like a little machine that squeezes it for you. But that's a simple way to eliminate some of those acidic wastes that got built up in the body over the holidays, and just do a flush. And then, like Mary was saying, your melons are really incredible. We want to rehydrate the body and alkalize the body. A lot of the foods that we have over the holidays can contain those high sugars or be processed. And those are all acid forming to the body and dehydrating to the body. So we want to alkalize, do the opposite, because that's how the body regenerates, is in an alkaline environment. And we want to rehydrate. And one of the things that happens is when we are down a path where we're eating a lot of sugars and sweets, the body's going to actually start craving that, because we eat for our internal terrain. So it's actually our gut microbiome and the microbes inside of us that are controlling our cravings. And so there's certain microbes that love processed sugars, like the donuts and the cakes and the pies and the cookies and all of that. That's what feeds them and fuels them. And so if we are really craving that, we know that it's time to do a bit of a parasite cleanse to restore that balance, that internal terrain, so that we're no longer craving those foods. If we're dehydrated at a cellular level, the body's going to crave breads. Breads are really dehydrating. So again, we kind of get into these habits and patterns. So if we're eating a lot of breads and such, the body's going to want more and more and more of that. If we switch it over and incorporate a lot more fresh fruits and veggies into our lives, our body's going to want more and more of that. So we're just creating new habits, repatterning our body and our habits. And it doesn't take too long. It can just be as simple as starting your day with fresh fruits, getting more salads and cucumber salads and greens and such in throughout your day, to start shifting those patterns, those dominant patterns, over from an acidic chemistry into an alkaline chemistry. So basically, for recovery, I would incorporate grapes, I would incorporate fresh fruits, and I'd also incorporate teas. So my favorite teas, I'll send this in the list, I love from Dr. Robert Morse. We have a Heal All tea. I don't recommend that while breastfeeding or pregnant. There's also some kidney teas that will start to eliminate those built up congestions from the body. And that's just really nurturing and helping us to reboot and reset. And then green drinks. I love green drinks. And as Carrie was mentioning earlier, we host a beautiful transformation group and container where people can really come and we meet them wherever you're at. So if your goal is to like really cleanse and reset, we meet you there. If your goal is to train and become more of an athlete, we meet you there. Basically, it's just to help people find more joy, more health in their lives. And one of the things that we incorporate there is our green drinks that are grown in regenerative soils. And what I found is that I felt depleted before I started incorporating this mineral-rich greens, which is just grasses and wheat grasses and all of that, but they're grown in healthy soils, watered with mineral-rich spring water. And that made all the difference in the world for me, because I was finding myself just looking in the fridge, wanting different sweets, wanting different things. And it was because my body wasn't fully mineralized. Even though I grew up with an organic garden and I've had my own gardens and I worked on regenerative farms, I still was depleted because of the majority of the food that we're getting at the grocery stores and that are shipped in from the trucks are picked really early so they don't have their full nutritional quality, and B, they're grown in depleted soils. So we're all working to support regenerative and organic farmers because that is going to have a huge planetary impact on our environment, but also on our health as a community. And so these rich green drinks, they help us to move away from cravings because we're getting deeply, deeply nourished in what we actually need. So I loved Carrie Drinkwine's tip at the beginning of this video. She'll just have a green drink before going out to eat or before having a big community dinner, because she'll already feel satisfied. She'll already feel nourished, so that when she does see all of these amazing treats and things, she can really just not be so tempted. She'll just have what feels appropriate, and I've noticed that in my life. Before I felt really nourished, these different sweets and treats looked so good and delicious, and I would have more than was appropriate or healthy for my body. And now that I have like my green drink before, I actually don't even want any of the treats or the sweets. But if I do have it, I'll just have a little bit and I'll feel so content. I don't want any more. I don't need any more. So I find that that is so incredibly helpful. So if you're looking for ways, those are simple ways, just like the following day, just have some fresh fruit, have some teas, have some green drinks. And the other important factor is our gut microbiome, because that, again, impacts what we're craving. Our gut microbiome should be really diverse, full of different microbacteria and microfungi that is breaking down our foods so that we can actually be nourished at the cellular level. And again, if we're eating a lot of processed foods and sugars, that microbiome gets compromised. And also, a lot of the foods that we eat have glyphosate on it, and that also compromises our microbiome. So I really love replenishing that microbiome to its full diversity. And we work with something that actually pulls that glyphosate out of the body so the body can replenish itself. And I find that just resets me back to neutral, back to balance, back to zero. So if the scales are tipped in one direction, it gets me back in track. So if you want to do a bit of a reset with us, we have a beautiful program that incorporates strengthening the body, supporting the body with plant-based aminos, and then supports that gut microbiome, really floods and nourishes our cells with those micronutrients from healthy soils, just in the form of healthy drink, and then really supports that kidney filtration and sleep. So we host a beautiful container for that, and that is something that I actually do every single day, and that's my maintenance, and that's what keeps me just in a really happy, healthy, balanced place in my life, where I don't go too far astray one direction or the other. So reach out to us or the person that invited you here if you want to learn more about that. And I hope that you enjoy your holidays so much. Really soak in that time with your family. Really enjoy the nourishing foods that are around you, the colors, the smells. Enjoy the whole experience, and then have those tools in your pocket of, if you do go too far on that acidic side, how to get back to our greatest joy. And that's all I have for us. So thank you, ladies.
I was gonna pop on, I forgot to mention just one thing that I think is so powerful is really about not only, that all or none mentality, but it's really the mind state of how we view certain things. So we've been like socially trained from a young age to believe that that alcohol is how we relax, that's how we enjoy, that's how we celebrate. And that same with food, like Carrie Tidwell mentioned. So that's like really ingrained into our belief system. that's like our cellular belief. So what our cells think is what our self thinks. It's all connected. So the biggest thing that I see when people start making these changes towards balance is that they look at, like, I know this is the healthy thing I should do, but this is the fun thing, and they separate the two. And so they separate it into, like, the healthy options. Basically, it's they focus on the restriction and, like, oh, I can't have, I can't have, I can't have. And so when we focus on, all of a sudden you've put an entire incredible food group that's going to nourish your soul and your body into a deprivation belief. So you're believing that fruits and vegetables are depriving you, and it's actually the opposite. And then you're believing that the bad foods are fulfillment in some sort. So when we separate and we think, like, oh, I'm on a cleanse, so I can't have that, you're already setting yourself up for failure. Versus looking at, how enjoyment can be in balance. How can I view this as, like, beautiful abundance of nourishment and of nutrients? So that's something that I noticed along my way, is like, oh, I can't have that. Like, oh, poor me, right? It's like this victim mentality, like, oh, I can't have these things that are going to harm my body that I've associated with joy. So really look at that relationship and see if you can start associating, like, fruits and vegetables as abundance and joy and nourishment and celebration. And so that's a really important, check your mindset. And then the recipe I wanted to mention was, I mentioned it actually in the last Sunday's call, and I think I put the recording up, but it's like the pie crust that Mary Beth explained, but I use like a little pecan, a little walnut, a little fresh coconut and dates. And then I do a pumpkin persimmon banana pie. And it's so good. You just blend pumpkin, banana, and persimmon. That's it. And put your pumpkin pie spices on it and stick it in the freezer. And then you can top it with a coconut whip. So we are human. We eat all of these things. We love all of these things. We just choose the healthier version of it. So that's all I want to say. Yeah, thanks so much for being here and for letting us talk to you and share with you, and invite a friend to our next call. Mary Beth will announce our next call.
Yeah, thank you. And those mindset tips are so key, Carrie. So thank you for bringing those back in. So yeah, if you enjoyed, next month, our free health talk is actually going to be around immunity and winter time, and just really supporting our immune systems during the colder seasons. And that's going to happen December 13th, same time. And we will have in the follow-up email a registration link that you, same as you did this time if you registered for the event. So keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for the flyer. And if you registered for this free health talk, like I said, we'll have all that follow-up email come to you with recipes and grocery lists. And just hope you guys have a really, really wonderful holiday season, and just try to go for the hydration, the oxygenating foods, the abundant foods, and picking the healthier version of some of your favorite meals. So that's all I have to say. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.